Hey, good morning, thinker. Good afternoon, good evening. Today's March 3rd. And oh, thanks again for Hey, good morning, thinker. Letting me know that I had scheduled this stream on the wrong day. Appreciate that. So got that fixed. And I got something new for you. Check this out. Hi, you can see me now. So I picked up this new camera. This is actually EOS R10. I got a whole Canon camera set up. Another Canon camera here, and then my palette camera. But you'll probably see a lot of me in this kind of setup here because I'm going to be using this free camera setup to start recording videos as well for like the normal non-live stream videos. So it's kind of nice to be able to see hopefully for you to be able to see me talking to you directly. Or maybe it'll be upsetting. Oh, look at this guy. Oh my god. Hopefully it's not upsetting. So yeah, I got the camera set up looking good. Also for the canvas camera, I got a lens where I can just quickly and easily zoom in and out. Look at that. That's fantastic. I'm really happy about that. Having that ability so you guys can see like the extreme detail when I'm getting close into it. So you can follow along easier. The only other, there's two pieces of the puzzle that I'm waiting for. One is the charger for putting out more paint right now. One is the charger for this camera here so that it doesn't just cut off, but the battery life on it's actually really good. Hopefully, well, we'll see if it lasts, you know, a bit over an hour, but if it doesn't, it'll just cut off and then I won't switch to that camera. So it's not going to be a big deal for right now, but I'll get a battery pack for it so I don't have to do that because I already have that for these other two cameras. But I tell you what, this kind of setup it's not cheap. I'll just say that. It's not cheap at all. But the reason why I did it is because after doing, you know, this is 83 of our live stream here. Number 83, it's crazy. That's when I started counting. So I've probably done, you know, getting close to 100 now, I would guess. But after doing that many, I've realized that I really like this kind of interactive approach to everything. Where, you know, you guys can ask questions and I can answer them. You know, all that kind of stuff. The only way that I could make that better is if I did a live stream a little bit later in the day. Probably grabbed a bunch more people. But we'll see how that goes. All right, starting out, I'm going to be working on the tiger body. And I'm going to re-oil out over here because I really like how the refined linseed oil that I'm oiling out with helps with the glazes that I put over. I'm going to stick in a small area right here because there's a lot going on with these stripes on the body at this place. And I want to make sure that I get this done before moving on. Okay. Yeah, let me know if there's anything in the stream setup that's kind of looks wonky. Besides my visage. Like, yeah, Chris, could you not switch to that new camera anymore? Looks like you just woke up. Well, I didn't just wake up. I woke up almost an hour ago. And look, you can watch me drink tea. I got my cup from India. Well, it looks like it's from India. I don't think it's from India. but I drink green tea every morning. So here I am drinking green tea. So you're not just hearing the slurping in the mic. You can actually watch me drink. Isn't that interactive? Okay, what are we doing here? Well, first, let's position the camera a little bit higher so you can see everything that I oiled out. There you go. And the first thing is to bring down the saturation of all this orange that's here. Yeah, we don't want that much saturation. So let's mix up a nice unsaturated orange, and I remember that mixture now, which is instead of starting with the transparent earth orange, which, believe it or not, I mean, if we look at, and this is really interesting, but let me back up here. If we look at the color wheel, okay, the transparent earth orange is here, which is 4 as far as intensity or chroma, and then burnt umber is here, which is 2. They're the exact same color. It's just one is transparent and more saturated, the other one is semi-transparent and less saturated. But the jump from 2 to 4 really makes a huge difference in saturation on the canvas. At least, you know, that orange, it looks much more saturated. I find it really interesting. You would think because, you know, just a jump from 2 to 4 on the Munsell indication of saturation, it wouldn't be that much. Like, it wouldn't be so huge, but it is. That's another, you know, this is one of the reasons why I really enjoy the Munsell color system, at least making that palette for it, is you get a better understanding of color, you know, the colors that you have and their relation with each other. Should probably bring down the value a little as well, no? Let's look. Well, you know, the one thing I'm looking at is my reference is in the wrong place, so we can't even tell. Hold on. Yeah, now we can see it. Oh yeah, 100% right. Value needs to come down on that area. So thank you. I'm glad you said that. I think what's I mean, those kind of suggestions and, you know, the things that you postulate and everyone else kind of says, hey, what about, you know, I think this. It really helps because you have a different kind of look at things. And, you know, I'm not as focused as I could be because, you know, I'm doing a live stream. So I'm doing a few things at once, which I'm getting used to it, but well, anyway, thank you so much. It's very helpful, every suggestion that you make. Because of you and other people on the stream, this is a better painting, definitely. So this is burnt umber almost right out of the tube. And that brings it down, but not enough. I wonder if it would be advantageous to do another Munsell color wheel based on value instead of chroma. Ooh. Well, what's interesting about the Munsell color system, and I'm grabbing the book. Again, if you wanted to get this book, this is Controlling Color with the Munsell System. This is the Paul Centore copy, Centore. It's like $90 on Amazon. And honestly, I have not used it that much. All of the text that's actually in this book is, well, you can't see that at all. It's just blown out. All the text inside of the book is free. I think, the book has reached a certain point in time where you can get all the text for free. It's the plates that are interesting. The reason why I bought from this guy is because of the reviews, and people said that, he was using some super accurate printer to actually print this. But if you look at the very first plate, it's all neutral colors. Wow, I wish I could. It's just like blown out like crazy. Yeah, sorry. Gonna have to be blown out right now. I changed lenses and I can't easily change the ISO. But they have a whole separate page just for value. But if you look at each and other plate, there is a value change there as well. So 1 through 9 as far as the value scale, 2 through 20 as far as the saturation. So the horizontal, or the x-axis, is all about saturation, and the y-axis is all about value. I'm not sure how you would adjust the color wheel to take on value, though. Because the mixtures, well, I guess... Yeah, if you did that, it would probably be... I'm giving it some thought here. Like, if we took this color wheel and we, like, for instance, these colors way out here, we did colors like desaturated colors. Well, no, that would just be saturation, because this is all about saturation. I guess what we would do is, instead of doing 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, you would do 1 through 9 in this aspect and plot the colors on the wheel in the same hue areas, but then focusing on bringing their value down somehow. Or just placing them right out of the tube where their value is. Huh. I wonder if that could be accomplished easier. Yeah, straight out of the tube, color has a value. I wonder if it'd be accomplished easier if we could change this color wheel so that each value, or each little area, you could put a number next to it and indicating its value number from Munsell. So what I would have to do is go through that color system book, right? And write down all the values for the paints that I have, because I will compare them exactly. That's the other piece of the puzzle. Is I'm still waiting for a camera body for my palette camera, so that it doesn't I'm upgrading that to a camera that doesn't shut off. But I guess the question, okay, I think it's a good idea. But while I'm painting, I think the question for that would be, how could that help? At what point would it help us paint? You know, matching color or dealing with value in some way. Because that's really the purpose of it. A lot of times, you know, me especially, I get into these kind of ideas. And then, you know, after the fact, I look at it and I go, well, you know, I have this, but it's not really that helpful. Okay, I have an idea of how it could be helpful, but I want to hear what you have to say first. Like, how do you think it would be helpful? So I'll wait patiently while I'm sitting here painting. The color I picked out is okay. It's lower in value. But I think it's a bit too blue. I'm gonna add some transparent earth orange. Not really liking that. Just pull that off with a paper towel. And what's left on there will bring the value down just a little bit. It is said value is the workhorse, but color gets all the credit. Yes. That is true. I repeat that. I've repeated that a lot. And I mean, the reason why is if you're defining a form, it's defined by value. A sphere looks round because of value. Now you can achieve that with color. You know, everything has color to it. You can achieve it with color saturation, but you know, most of the time it's just value. But it could be really any color on there, any color whatsoever, a multitude of colors, and it still looks rounded because of the values. Yeah. Okay, here's how I think it could be used. And I'll use it right here as an example. I'm going to pull off this area as well. Let's push it back some. So when you're doing color mixing, there's a couple ways that you could do this. So I'm trying to think of a color that we want to mix and match. Actually, this would be good. You know, let's say that I wanted to mix this orange here. So it's a bit brighter orange. And if I can mix that, I can darken it up and then adjust it where I want, right? So let's say I want to match that color. And don't worry, this feeds into how value can really help us out. So it's definitely an orange. You know, where I would start, honestly, is let me put out on my palette a cadmium orange, okay? Because usually what you would do, I just want a tiny bit because we're not going to use much of this, is you would start out with a color that's really close to that. Actually, it was transparent earth orange would probably be closer than anything, as we know. But you could start out with an orange as well. Let's start out with an orange so that the value is just way off and we really have to make some adjustments. Get a bigger brush so you guys can see this. So I'll start out with this orange and I'll mix up a big pile of it because we're gonna have to do a couple things here. We'll ask the questions. Where does it need to go? It needs to be, the value needs to come down a lot. I mean, if I look at, you know, just the canvas, I mean, that value is tremendously different. So the value needs to come down a lot. And it needs to be desaturated. So the three questions: does it need to be lighter or darker? Does it need to be more saturated, less saturated? Does it need to be warmer or cooler? So desaturated and going towards a cooler side. So when you desaturate an orange, because this is the most saturated thing, this is a 16 in saturation on the Munsell scale, so we have to add blue to it. So blue would be the best thing. So ultramarine blue, because that'll do everything. That'll bring the value down, it'll desaturate it, it'll make it more blue. But, well, yeah, let's do this first. And this will, because usually, actually, let me back up a bit. Let's say that we just want to, now that we have that, we know where we want to go. Now we just focus on value, okay? Just value alone. Matching the color with value. Now, see, even at this point, I'm thinking I'm not going to be using the Munsell color wheel, even for this, because I'm just matching what's on the canvas. That's interesting that this went to a green. It's like a green color more than it is a orange. So what I can do is I can flatten out my brush a bit and I can put it close to the color on the canvas. And who cares that it's green? It doesn't matter. Maybe I'll put like a just tiny daub on there. All right, so it's still lighter. It's still too light. Zoom way in on that. Okay, still too light. I don't care about the color at all, the hue at all. So let's bring it down. Let's add in more blue. Actually, let me add a little bit of medium so that it moves around better as well. And it's flatter so that we have less reflection, glare. A little bit more blue. I think it needs to come down just a bit more. And then back to the canvas. Let me remove that little bit. And honestly, I probably, you know, if I did this differently, like if I was really wanting to match the color, I wouldn't put it directly on the canvas. You could use something like, and I haven't used this in a while, but I have it. Let me show you this. So I have this, it's a clear kind of top for some kind of food item. I don't know what it is, but it's just a clear piece of plastic, really. That's all it is. And then I have a black piece of board with a square cut out of it. And what you can do is take a bit of this color and you put it on the edge here. And this is for really extreme color matching. So I'm putting the color down, keeping it as flat as I can on this clear piece, okay? And then I'll take it and I'll put it inside that little window like this, and then we'll go back to the canvas, and then we'll put the window, well, actually, it's hard to do it on the canvas when you can't touch the canvas because I'm casting a shadow here. But you would, let's go ahead and lay it down directly. That's how you would compare things. It'd be a different way to compare. I could probably just go straight onto it with it. Like right there. So actually that's a really nice comparison. So you get it next to what you're trying to match, but, and it's flat against the canvas, like exactly the same orientation as the canvas. So the value there is, as I squint down, close one eye and I squint down, the value is pretty darn close. You know, for that kind of orange area. So we got the value on. And then I'm going to use a paper towel to get all that color off of my plastic piece. Okay. Now, the next thing we do is we look at the color that we have, which is a green, and we figure out where it needs to go. So we're in a green area. It needs to be a bit, you know, closer to orange. What would we add to that green to make it more orange? Well, we could add orange, but then we'd be, you know, back to where we started from, you know. This is where, you know, really the thinking kind of comes in. I can mix up an orange, but yeah, let's do this. So what we want to do is we want a completely different brush. Usually you do this with a palette knife because you could clean off the palette knife and it would be pretty easily done. So we're going to start with an orange. So transparent earth orange. Okay. And the reason I'm starting with this is because it's closer to that value. Okay. And let's say I take a little bit of that transparent earth orange right out of the tube. And I'll put it right on my little clear thing. And then I hold this over the paint. And the orientation matters because sometimes if you have ridges in the paint when you add it here, it will have some glare to it. It's really hard to see on the palette camera. Sorry about that. But basically, it's a bit too dark. Now, what I'm trying to do is I'm mixing up a separate color, and I want it to be more orange, okay, closer to orange, but I want it to be this exact same value as this color, so that when the two mix, I don't have a value change, if that makes sense. So this needs to be more orange. Or closer to orange, or a bit lighter, actually. It is really orange. It just needs to be lighter. So how am I going to lighten it up? What's the best way to lighten it up? I'm going to go with white on this. Just a little bit of white. And actually, on the palette, I could probably just put it right next to it. Let's see. And I think I killed it with that little bit of white. Boy, that just really changed the value too much. A little bit darker still. That's really close in value. But at no point, I mean, I figured I would maybe lean on, yeah. Sorry, I'm in my head a lot here. Okay, let's mix these two together, at least some of them, like up here. So the value should stay the same when I mix these two together. And it is. It's almost exactly the same, but now that green has become more orange. I have a third pile of paint. And then let's see where we're at on the canvas. Still a bit too green, but it's pretty darn close. I mean, as far as value, that's super close. It still needs to be a bit more orange, though. Yeah, that's just about right on, I would say. I mean, this is the, what I would call the full kind of routine for mixing color and matching color. If you wanted to make sure that you have it right on. It's a bit arduous, honestly, but if it really matters that you match it exactly, I think it's really important. Now, how you could make that easier is if you use the Munsell like color book where you have every single color, and or if you had your if you had your color wheel figured out so that you knew how to bring down the value on each thing with a certain mixture, that would almost be infinitely large, I think. And that's why the color system is like, 60 pages long of all these little color things. These little color daubs. They try to exhaust all the possible colors. So you could match it in there and see that it's like, in the Munsell color system, it'd probably be right around, 10, 2.5 YR or something like that. And then you could see, okay, the value is going to be, X or Y. But instead of matching it to, no, you would still have to match it to the tiger. But it would give you kind of a starting point, I guess. Yeah, I don't see it. Without a ton of work, I don't see it being really helpful at the beginning. Maybe I'm missing a point here. But I'm glad I got that color mixed up. Let me get rid of all this green. I'll mix it all into this orange. Let's make it a little bit more orangish, though. I think it's probably good to do something like that when you're starting out, when you have color mixture issues, when it's hasn't become intuitive yet, I guess, which it never is all the time. You are kind of hunting and pecking in a lot of ways. But if you have a method, you can get to there a little bit faster. Like I still hunt and peck for colors, because I'm doing it all wrong, but I mean, along the way, what I'm doing as well is kind of creating more than just those colors. But I have this nice kind of orange color, which is interesting on my palette. I'm thinking it's more of a green, but it matches that orange there almost perfectly. So now what I can do is take this and just drop the value of it, however I want. And I'm just going to mix it with what I had over here before to pull the value down. As subtle as I want to. But hopefully that process was understandable. So you get close to the color that you want to match with value first. So you get close with value first. And then you determine how you need to change the mixture that you've made to get close to what you want to match within the hue change and the saturation change. And you mix up a second or a third color that would help you with that are all the same value. And what you're doing is you're just separating out the value mixture from the saturation and the hue mixtures. You end up with multiple piles of paint. But in the end, you can just adjust one aspect of color rather than when you put something in there, you're adjusting all three aspects of the color. It's very similar to what we were doing digitally, where I moved us over to the advanced color picker in Krita, and it had these little sliders in it at the bottom of that advanced color picker, where you could set those so that you just adjusted one aspect of color on its own. So stay with the same hue and saturation, just change the value. Or stay with the same hue and value and change the saturation. Was that really hard to understand, Thinker? Did I go like way off the chart? It's the first time I've shown anything like that, so I really don't know a lot of the language behind it on how to best impart that knowledge, I guess. I don't want to say teach. I don't see myself as a teacher, but maybe I am. I don't know. It would be really funny if your comment came up and it said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. What did you say?" That would crack up. I'm sorry, I was busy watching Andrew Tischler talk about color. Probably a better use of your time. Oh, so funny. So the values here, kind of roll down there. They are lighter up at the top. They do blend in a little bit. Darker at the back, darker at the bottom. Goes to blue really quickly, and that's what I'm trying to do. Excellent. I saw a video that talked about value correcting, the complement of the color you're trying to adjust before mixing it to your base color. Yeah, it's like that. This is, you know, I didn't create this. Really, the idea of it I got from Paul Foxton, Foxton. He has a really cool course on color. I didn't take the course. I was just watching a bunch of his videos. But it's not something I do very often because it is so kind of arduous, I guess, to do. I feel like, well, to try and put my words more succinctly, I'm not a painter that mixes a color and then blends it based on value over a surface. For example, if you're painting, you know, human skin, there's a tendency to blend, you know, around an arm from light to dark using the same local color of that person's body. And that's fine. I mean, you get a very smooth kind of transition, kind of a very pretty body look, you know? You know, like, but that's helpful in a lot of instances. Like, a child's face is going to have that very subtle transition. You know, there's not going to be a lot of variation. Well, I've never painted a child's face, so I'm assuming that. A woman's face or a man's face that has makeup. A person's face that has makeup, excuse me. There's that very smooth transition. I tend to paint where I put all kinds of different colors, hues, within those transitions. I think you've seen me a couple times mix up paint here, where I'll have all of, you know, the RGB on the outside and I mix to the center of something. And I'll make up all different types of hues and values and then just kind of work within them all. What that does, I mean, it does pull me away from, you know, this kind of value approach, this kind of atelier approach, and deeper into color. But the color tends to get garish in my paintings a bit over the top. And eventually I'll get deeper into color relativity using color gamuts and things like this so that I stay within a relative hue and just use subtle changes throughout the whole painting, so I create a harmony throughout the painting. That's one thing that I'm probably going to be working on soon. But the one thing that the method doesn't do is, you know, focus on just one hue and figure out the value transition throughout that. And I just want to be clear here that either way is not good or bad. There's no good or bad in art. So I was watching a video by Andrew Tischler, who's amazing. He's absolutely amazing. Very, very detailed painter. It was his latest video where he's talking about, you know, why do what you do kind of thing. And it was in response to, I guess, other individuals that were kind of like, well, why don't you just take a photo? And I have said that before multiple times. You know, when you get into hyper realism or photorealism, hyperrealism is the one where it looks exactly like a photo. And his argument for it was basically, I love doing it, and this is what I do, and this is what gives me joy. And, you know, I couldn't refute that. I was like, yeah. Actually, I liked his comment at the end, you know, painters gotta paint. I was like, yeah, that's awesome. So that's one aspect that I kind of left on the table when I had commented about, you know, why not take a photograph? Because my argument is, where are you in this painting? Where is your influence? If you're copying directly from a photograph, where is your influence? And I was thinking about just narrative, story, you know, things like this. But his argument is, my influence is the painting itself. This is where I'm at. And that made a lot of sense to me. Like, yeah, you're right. But you better believe that if I had a chance to talk to Andrew Tischler, I would challenge him and say, you know, why don't you make a painting where you don't use any reference whatsoever? Because that's really hard. I bet you he could make an absolutely beautiful painting right out of his head. And it would be all him. It would be from his brain, like all the paintings that he's done. Like he could do, you know, an Australian landscape that just looks, you know, absolutely fantastic. But at the end of the day, he would probably say, yeah, it's a beautiful painting, but I don't like working that way, so I'm not going to do it again. And I would say, okay. Yeah, that's, you know, you're even more awesome in my eyes because you were able to do it, and you understand what you like and you dislike, who you want to be and who you don't want to be, you know, what kind of artist you want to be. So there is some light, you know, back to the painting, actually. There's a bit of these lighter areas that kind of flow somewhat into the tiger here. But what I'm recognizing is I need to have this value here so that I have a good transition through the tiger's body, you know, vertically, because it goes darker and then into like a gray and darker as well. I need to have at least this value. So if I bring that up, then that requires me to bring up the value here as well, like in the front body of the tiger. So that's what I think I'm going to do right now, is I'm going to bring up the value a little bit just to make some more separation within the front body of the tiger. Because there's this very important line that separates the front of the tiger from the side of the tiger. And it's right here. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It could just be very subtle. Let me zoom out so you can see this. Zoom out so I can see it, because I'm always looking at the stream. It's a fantastic resource for being able to get away from your painting. So back to the value system on the Munsell color wheel. I'm still skeptical on if that would be helpful at all. I think it would be more advantageous to discern, put that stroke in the wrong place, to discern where you have trouble as far as value is concerned with your color matching. And then develop a strategy to, and I can help you with that. I just need a, specific indication of where you have trouble with color mixing as pertaining to value, or just where you have trouble with color mixing exactly. And then we could come up with a strategy together to practice so you could get to it. You could improve that skill even faster. Okay, the next thing I like is right here is very blue. It provides a wonderful separation between the front of the tiger and the side of the tiger. Going overly blue with it right now. It really needs to be a gray, so I'm going to be adding a burnt umber and white. To get to the gray that I want. Let's see, this value may be too dark. Actually, it's not too bad. I can use that in places. Okay, I'm getting beyond where I oiled out as soon as we started. We're coming up on an hour. And the camera that chose me still is full power, so I'm still here. Hey, good morning, Ashton. How are you this Monday morning? Yeah, definitely. I've improved my stream so that I can do transitions a lot easier. I got a stream deck. So now when I'm painting, I can actually talk to you instead of like you know, this nebulous kind of head in the air somewhere, you can actually see me. The other thing that's nice is I can go to my canvas and then I could zoom in and out or zoom way out and you can see, you know, my whole painting area almost. And you can get way into the details. So I'm really happy about that. It's gonna be giving me a lot of freedom and flexibility with showing everybody that shows up to the stream, you know, details and yeah, it's just more tools I can use to help you guys out, basically. I'm exhausted this morning, but it's my last week before spring break. Oh yeah, good. Take some good break. Party all the time, all night. No, that would be the opposite of a break. Unless you're mentally exhausted and maybe you just need to do something else, you know. Out with friends, have some fun. But thanks for showing up. I understand the exhaustion. I actually have taken off today and tomorrow from my job. I'm very skeptical if I'll be able to go throughout the whole day without answering some phone calls, though. We'll see. Hopefully, nothing's on fire that I have to put out. I've never had a party and things. Think I'm just stay indoors and do art and personal work. That's good. That's good. Yeah, my brother was a big partier, I think, in college. The friends that I got into with were artists, and they were just as introverted as I was. So we would go do painting, and we would stay up late. It wouldn't be like the party drinking and all that kind of stuff, you know, like you see on TVs, but it would be more creative, I think, than anything. Yeah, I remember some exhausting days. I think we're getting to a point here where I can get back to establishing the stripes before I end the stream. I want to darken up one last place that's further down that you guys can't see. And it's right in between these two stripes. Speaking of personal work, Ashton, did you ever share your personal work with us or with me? I can't remember, honestly. I've seen Ula's work. I've seen Finish's work. I've seen Thinker's work, but I can't remember seeing your work. If you're up for it and you want to get some feedback on your work, at any point in time, no pressure, shoot me an email. Mark Carter Mixing Colors suggested asking the questions, does this color need more red, yellow, or blue? I had difficulty knowing what I need more of. Ooh, that's a good question. I'm thinking about that. I haven't yet. I'll go to the studio today and take a pic of my finished prints. Yeah, that's right. The prints. The lino prints. Linoleum? Yeah. So I always forget what that stands for. Yeah, it's kind of the same question that I asked Thinker, where it's, you know, does it need to go closer to red or blue? You know, warmer or cooler? He does, I guess he does all three of the primaries, you know, red, yellow, or blue. And I can see that because, you know, sometimes, you know, it needs to be more yellow, which it's not really red. But not being able to understand what you need, I could understand that. And you kind of say, oh man, do I need to go closer to blue, red, or yellow? I think here's what I'm thinking about. Usually, you know, everything is on a spectrum. So when you're first starting out, it's hard to tell even what the difference between the blues are, right? And that could be a good place to start with this, you know, gaining that discerning eye where you can look at a color or a hue and you could say, okay, ultramarine. And actually a lot of this has to do with memory because I'm trying to remember the differences in blues, right? So let's say, let me just zoom in on this. So these are the 4 different blues I have. Well, I have 5. There's a manganese blue here. I'm not going to count the radiance. They're just adding white to something. Actually, I have a cerulean blue hue that I haven't put on here yet, but it's going to be the same as cerulean blue. So we have ultramarine, we have phthalo, we have cobalt, we have cerulean, and we have manganese. And they're all right next to each other. So I could say that ultramarine is a warmer blue compared to cerulean, but it's not that much warmer. I mean, it's pretty close there. Phthalo blue is the same PB. You know, 5 PB is cerulean blue. I mean, that's kind of hard to believe. You know, cobalt blue is the same as well. I mean, I couldn't fit these all in the same place, so they're all kind of grouped there. But manganese blue is like the odd man out. That's definitely a more green blue, so it has more yellow in it. We're getting closer to yellow here, we're getting closer to red. But looking at like a primary like that, having some memory with it, like that your ultramarine blue is not going to get you a super intense purple. If you mix it with a certain red, which it should because it's closer to purple. But anyway, ultramarine blue is supposed to be warmer than the other blues that I have, right? It's like a warm blue, but it's so subtle. That's where I think the Munsell color wheel can kind of help, is you're looking at these colors and you're getting more of a memorization understanding of, you know, which is warmer and which is cooler. Which is closer to yellow, which is closer to red, which is closer to blue. A good exercise to work on is to pick up some painting color swatches from the hardware store and try to match them. Yeah, that's good. But I think that's you know what? I think that's a wonderful exercise. It is fantastic. A better exercise, though, is to work on a painting from a photograph and then match the colors from there. Where that gets more difficult and where you can make it easier. Oh, this is actually really good practice. So the paint swatches are great and easy because you can put the paint right on there and they're big blocks of the same color. If you're working from a photograph, it's like a blending of all different types of values and colors, so it's a bit harder, right? I guess what I was wanting to say, and now I'm kind of backtracking on this, is if there's some way that you can take an exercise like that and use it to actually make a painting or work on making something, creating something, it's infinitely more helpful. Because, you know, you're using it, it's not just, you know, an exercise that can be demotivating because it's kind of mindless in a lot of ways. But you can kind of do that while you're creating something. At the end, maybe you have a good looking painting rather than a bunch of swatched colors that with just paint all over them. Does that make sense? There's a tendency for a lot of artists to get into this exercise mode. I say this because I did it myself so often. You get into this exercise mode to improve your skills, and then you forget about, oh, I'm supposed to be making paintings, you know? So another thing you can do, I would have to play with Krita on this, but take a photograph and play with some of the filters so that it turns a photograph into a very kind of fuzzy block of values and colors. Well, then you'd be trying to match off of a screen, and that's difficult. I've tried it, and it has a lot of difficulties to it because one is backlit, the other one isn't. Unless you do it and then you print out, you get it printed out. Yeah, I'll have to think about that, but so far that's a really good exercise. If I could think of a way to take that exercise into making a painting, I'll make a video about it right away. Now that I have this new setup, I can actually do that. I can jump into the cockpit here, turn on everything, and then make a video. That's what I want to accomplish, is the ability to, when I have something I want to share, the ability to share it without any friction. I mean, a lot of times it comes down to, you know, just putting in the work, honestly. I think there's a lot of exercises that can be done, or things that can be done that are can be more efficient to get you to where you want faster. And I will definitely look for those all the time. But then there's other ones where it's like, yeah, I can't make this anymore. There's no efficient practices for it. It's just, it needs to work. I'm not saying that color mixing is it. But yeah, I need to find that efficient approach. I make a digital plan for my prints, and the end result is never the color palette I planned. I'm okay with it changing my plan in the midst of working. Yeah, that's true. That flexibility is important. Oh, this stripe. Okay, you're saying the stripe just to the right of the right front leg seems to perfectly outline the right side of the right leg. Is that a good idea? So this one right here. Good eye. So you're pointing out a tangent here. Remember in we went through the compositions all of the aspects of composition. That was one of the very first things we did on this stream. And tangents was one of those things where something just barely meets, but doesn't cross over. And the idea of that was if you have, like for instance, if I had this palm frond here, can you guys see that? Yeah, you can see it. This palm frond here, if it, actually it should kind of go behind the tiger really, but even that space is too little, I think. Maybe I need to increase that space, but if this palm frond came down and just touched the tiger tail, like it went right here, that would be a tangent that would remove the depth. You wouldn't know which is in front, which is behind, okay? So, you know, the better choice on that would be to go ahead and take it behind the tail so that you establish a front and a, you know, this is in front of that. So, if that's the definition of tangents, tangents destroy depth. Is this destroying the depth or is it enhancing it? That stripe. Actually, you know what it's doing? I think it's kind of flattening out that leg there a bit. It is helping, you know, differentiate, but I think it is flattening out. So let's do this. I'm going to go with a darker dark. I'm going to darken up this whole space here so it's less of a stripe. And then I'm actually I'm gonna break it as well. I'm gonna break that stripe up. Like right here, lighten it up some. Oops, too light. And bring some of those cool colors over here. That's a bit too light. What I need is some teal back here. I haven't been adding in any of my crazy colors, which gives life to this painting. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I use the same brush, so it's gonna take a bit to get what I want because now it had blue in the brush. I could have switched brushes on that, but that's okay. I say that a lot, but that's okay. And it is. It's always okay. What I'm really doing here is I'm just looking closer at our digital painting, which does have that line there, but I'm going to pull out some ideas from the digital painting that I like and then kind of push back some of the things I don't. Oh my gosh. The alizarin permanent just destroyed my mixture I was making. Holy crap, I picked up too much of it. So I want to up the intensity here just a little bit in a couple areas because I see it's happening there. Oops. My palette camera keeps shutting off. Stop doing that. Okay. Now I'm going to go back into this lighter area and lighten up some fur here. Especially right on the top of this leg. It's going to be some definite textural fur looking like strokes. And there's a really nice green in there too. Okay. Now it looks less like a particular stripe that outlines the whole thing, and more like kind of a combination of both. Thank you again for pointing that out. For pointing out stuff. Yeah, now I got a really clear separation between the front of the tiger and this side. I'm really liking that. I'm feeling the depth there a lot more. Next thing I want to do is bring some of those stripes back. There's like some subtlety and like some darker areas here. They're stripes, but they're, you know, kind of the hair is covering up the stripes a bit much. Very subtle. Much better. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Back to the side. So I have some of these stripes in here that I reestablished, but they're a bit too sharp. The ones that are closer here, that's fine, but the ones back here, I'm going to blend, blend out a lot. Make this one larger. I'm always thinking about edges. I mean, and texture. Texture is a big thing for me. And how it can enhance or detract away from the center of interest. You remember, our center of interest is kind of, you know, the head portion, you know, everything up at the top, and not this area. In fact, you know, I've said this before about the way I paint. I get too detailed sometimes, and especially in this entire area, I could have, you know, really not been as specific about it. A lot less detail. And you can see how, I mean, hopefully you guys see this. Let me see if I can. So one thing I'm noticing here, I mean, yeah, and this is really interesting. This part of the tail with these sharp lines, these sharp edges, looks like it's on a plane that is more forward than the body. Can you see that? And that has everything to do with how sharp these edges are. In fact, the edges don't have to be that sharp because we have this kind of light color next to a really dark color. So two things to push that back is to soften up the edges between each thing by softening up the textures, and then also bringing those values closer together a bit. So let's do one of those. I'm going to start with the stripe. You know, I wonder what is the stripe? Is the black the stripe or is the white the stripe? We don't know. Yeah, it's the black stripes. Because that's the rest of the body's like that. So I'm just going to put some of this darker value on here. And I'm going to draw it into the white area. So really just kind of throwing it down over, not really worried about too much on it. I might as well go all the way down because it's pretty quickly going in. Yeah. I love painting. Marathon session today. What time is it? 5:51. I'll be ending soon. Okay, the next thing I want to do before I end is it also needs to be a lot more cool. The whole painting needs to be more cool and awesome. No, I'm kidding. It needs to be cooler. So more closer to blue. So this is going to be dark. Let's go ahead and go with this. So it's very cool. I even have some, oh geez, what's the name? Cerulean blue in there, which is our teal sort of color. So I'm going to throw all kinds of teal around in here. This will cool everything off. And then I'm going to take that even into the black stripes as well. Just really going everywhere with it. And this edge right here. Really need to take some color of the jungle in the background and bring it into this tail as well. Really lose some of those edges would be nice. So just doing that really pushed it back. So now it's back there. It's going behind the tiger butt. The tiger tail needs to be behind the tiger butt. And that's what we're doing. So I'm mixing up a very dark color now with a lot more blue in it. And we're going to turn the cylinder of this form by darkening up this side. Just very quickly. It's a simple shape, it doesn't need a lot. And now the light side. And I'm just going to add white because I want to keep it cool. I might add some green. That way it gets closer to the jungle a little bit. The jungle color. And we can lose some edges a bit better. Oh, it needs to be a lot lighter. Yeah, the teal looks really good in a lot of places. I fear that you have converted me to teal, and that every painting from now on, you know, it will have teal in it somewhere. And then hopefully one day, you know, after I'm dead, I'll be like super famous. It'll be like Van Gogh, and they'll say, "Oh, this was his teal period." Van Gogh had like a blue period, I think, at some point. Yeah, that's sufficiently way back there now. Purple is nice too. Okay, okay. I can only deal with one color. Actually, I like the magenta that we were adding in. It's kind of close to purple, but it's getting into in there. Okay, I see something else that we need to do. This is way too orange right here. I'm actually painting into the background just a little bit. Kind of like a reminder that I want to do some blending there when I get to the background. Okay, I'm going to stand back real quick and see what we've got. You know what's funny is, well, before I get to that, but yeah, that's looking really good. I like where it's at. The I think the hue of it is good. The saturation's good. Probably the saturation could come down a little bit more, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. But the tail is definitely pushed back. The tail is pushed back even further than on the digital version, and I like it better here as well. You can see the difference in the bottom of the leg versus, you know, where we've worked so far. So the bottom of the leg, after I oil it out and get to working on it, the value of that will drop down tremendously. And I think we're going to try and blend it into the background as much as possible. You know, the one thing I'm seeing now is the fourth leg. I need to bring that in somewhere. Like in between the two front legs would be an indication of that second back leg. Right now it looks like a three-legged tiger. So I need to bring that back in, even if it's a silhouette back there, so that there's some indication of that fourth leg. So that's another thing. But let me see if you can see this. What I really like is the feet of the tiger, the toes of the tiger were barely worked on that. Actually, I didn't do anything beyond the first layer. And those look really good just as they are. I don't think I'll be making a lot of changes to those when we get to those, hopefully tomorrow's session. We can do that. But yeah, really good for today. So much would you sell this? So how much would you sell this painting? That's a really good question. So we were actually talking about that, me and my wife, and because I if you go to, I think it's Saatchi.com/Chris Beaven, SAATCHI. Actually, I should put that up on my my end screen for my live stream. But me and my wife were talking about it, and she said, "You're not going to put the tiger up there, right?" And I was like, "No, I'm not going to put the tiger up there. I really painted it for you, but what if someone offers me a bunch of money for it?" And she's like, "Talk to me first." So honestly, I have to talk to my wife first before I even decide to sell it. I could put it up on Saatchi for some, $10,000 to $15,000 at least. If I counted up all the hours that I've put into this painting alone, and materials are negligible, but it's what I want to make per hour on a painting, it would be a very expensive painting, and that would be kind of like just pricing it so far out of the market that no one would buy it in some instances. But yeah, for right now, it'd be really darn expensive to buy. I mean, at the moment, what I would like to make per hour would be $45 an hour. It's actually what I make right now with my job. Well, around that, maybe a little bit less. And that's what I would need to survive. So thinking about that in a very kind of professional way as an artist, I think a lot of artists don't do this. And it's a whole other topic that I won't get into because we're getting to the end of the stream. But not playing the commodity market and playing a value market for your artwork. And not a value in a subjective sense, but the real value of your time on that art. And then price accordingly. Unfortunately, most art markets goes into like a commodity market where there's a race to the bottom in prices, regardless of quality or whatever. The one thing I like about Saatchi is they don't play that commodity market. You see paintings on there that are priced for what they're worth. And, maybe I'll get some sales. $30,000 minimum. I wish. That would be great. If I could sell a painting for that much, that would be, half my yearly income that I would need. Really. A little bit less than half. Actually, that would be gross, not net. So it would be less than half, definitely. Well, anyway, thank you guys so much for showing up, for being here. Thanks, Ashton. Thanks, Thinker, especially for all the questions and helping me out making an awesome painting. Tomorrow at the same time, I'll be right here. So I will see you guys tomorrow.